reconvene the Board of Finance budget hearings for 2019-2020. Tonight is the technical session to review both the city and Board of Education budgets. Since we do have members of the Board of Education here as well as administration, we will start with the Board of Education budget. I don't think, unless anyone disagrees, I don't think we need to page turn the Board of Education budget, but I will open the floor to anyone who would like to address any items within the budget, or if you would like to.
Yes, I was provided a list of projects, and I just want to know if you guys are going to spend all that money on those projects in this coming fiscal year. You will? Yes. Okay, so you won't, nothing's coming back to the city? No. Okay. And these were on a list?
If I could, the dollars that, the projects that were listed in the list that I sent you are from the 17-18 budget, which the books have been closed on.
Right. Okay, so in other words, right, you've got the $1.2 million floating around somewhere.
Many of those projects have already been completed. Some still need to be
These projects have been completed. All these
some still need to be finished. Some are still in progress, and some still need to be taken care of. But
okay. Yes, have a majority of them been done?
They have been.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
First question I have is now, we're 2/3 through almost this budget year. Do you have any projection on any overages you'll have this year or so?
I don't.
Did you have it last year? At any point about the 2/3 of the year?
We provide a quarterly report to the Board of Education, and that gives the board a listing of how much money has been encumbered, how much money has been spent, and how much money is still available to be spent.
Right.
But we expect that we will expend. We expect that we will spend the entire budget at this point. There are some areas that we know that there will be shortfalls in. One of them is teacher retirements. Last year, on the list that you saw, there was a surplus in teacher retirement because we budget for 18. I provided you with this information on the sheet that I gave you.
There's a large variance.
Right, there's a large variance. And so last year we had, I believe, 12 or 13 teachers, without looking at it again, that retired, so we had a surplus. This year, at this point in the fiscal year, we have 17 teachers that have retired already, and a number of other employees throughout the district. So we know that we're going to have a shortfall in that category this year because, as Mr. Castiglione said, there can be a fluctuation. We have to budget for the average, which is 18. That number hasn't changed. It's been pretty stable for many years. But we've had years where we had 8 teachers retire, and then the following year we had 28 retire. It all depends. This is the last year of a 3-year contract for the teachers, or the 19-20 year will be the last year, and we anticipate that there will be a high number of retirements because of changes in that teachers may expect in the following years to come.
The Board of Aldermen, it started with us, but the Board of Aldermen set up, you could have an account for any surplus, right? Do you remember the amount of money? Was it $350 that they allowed you to put aside as a...
Statute 10-240, I believe it's 248, allows the Board of Education to carry over 1% of its operating budget with the approval of the Board of Finance. And then once that account has been set up, or once it's been approved by the Board of Finance, then only the Board of Education can decide how it's spent. We did that we requested to carry over funds in 2012 budget, and we also did in 2014. The 2012 money was specifically earmarked for the artificial turf repairs at the two high schools, and those projects have been spent. They were spent the following year, I believe. And then in the 13, 14, or 14, 15, one of those 2 years, we requested that we carry over $300,000, and that money was specific to the reconfiguration and the redistricting projects and the monies that would cost there. And we spent well in excess of that, and we reported that back to the Board of Finance or the Board of Aldermen, that those monies were spent in the reconfiguration of the 2014 and 2015 school year. So those are the 2 years that we carried that money over. But the policy that the Board of Education has is that it has to be for a specific reason, and the state statute says it has to be approved by the Board of Finance.
Okay, now, you had a surplus at the end of 17, 18, and you decide just to spend it, which isn't budgeted at all. And you're allowed just to spend money that hasn't been budgeted. I don't feel as though that's absolutely correct.
Well, I respectfully disagree that it
Yeah.
wasn't budgeted. The money was budgeted. And then
No, not the money that's over. The money you spent the overage on was not budgeted.
Correct.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. I think this is skirting the budgetary process. If you take $1 million something, $1.2 million, and go spend it the way you want to spend it, and not indicate it to the Board of Finance or the Board of Aldermen how you are spending it, getting any approval to do this.
But isn't it a lump sum appropriation? I mean, I understand that they're presenting the
But they
anticipated
can't-
expenditures.
Yeah, it's a
I
lump
just want
sum.
to make sure I'm following.
Yeah, it is a lump sum appropriation, but they're indicating to us, the lump sum appropriation is gonna pay for this,
Right.
and they go about and paying for something else. They're not paying for something that's located in their budget. How can we as a
Under those
board?
circumstances, wouldn't that go back to the Board of Education?
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I know that, but
Yeah.
they can, sure, here's $1 million. Can you just imagine what Bethel Shelter would say? We'll give you 200,000 because it's a wish list for you. This is a wish list, from my understanding. These are the things they wanted to have done.
I would argue that it's not a wish list. These are much-needed buildings and grounds projects that the board needs to accomplish at some point in time. So last year, the board attempted to be a little bit more proactive with our buildings and grounds account, and if you remember, we added $300,000 to the superintendent's request because we wanted to say up front, we need to do more. And that money was reduced by this board. So we were put back into the situation where to get the work done on our buildings and grounds that we need to do, we have to resort to using the overages that are left at the end of the year. It's a process that's been followed by the board for many, many, many years because of that situation. Every time they requested money in the budget, when the budget's reduced, that's the first thing to always go, is buildings and grounds projects. And, going back, 20, 30 years, as long as I've been around, that's always where the cuts are made. So over time, the boards just stopped funding those lines so robustly. And they request the bare necessities on those lines, and then we rely at the end of the year on what we might have left to tackle the big, huge list. I mean, the list is millions and millions of dollars long.
Of course it is, I understand that. It would be on my side of the house too.
Right, so.
I mean, that's not a problem. I can understand you would have all these
We tried to
things.
budget more money last year for buildings and grounds. We wanted to add $300,000 so that we could be a little bit more proactive and transparent and upfront. This is what we want to do. We were rejected. That was rejected, that concept. So we had to.
No, in the course of the year, you knew you were gonna be over, probably retirements, whatever items that were over. You know, because you have to get an accountability as you go, what do you say, quarterly, Jim?
Yep,
You
but we
get a
don't know
quarterly
what's gonna
report.
happen in the last
So
quarter.
at the third quarter, you know you have some money. You could have swapped that money, you could transfer that money, you have the right to just transfer between accounts. We can't do that.
Well, that's what we
can't
do
go
at
with
the end,
that.
we
They
transfer,
did.
that is what we do, but we wait until the end of the year to do it, to make sure that the money's available. That
Yeah,
the
so
board
the city of
transfer it.
Milford, the people in the city of Milford have said, hey, we don't care about your taxes. We don't care about your taxes. We have $1 million here, we're gonna spend it.
If I could
Yeah.
please.
Go ahead, Joe, I'm
Let
sorry.
me interject. First, I want to dispel the myth that we just go out and spend a wish list. Every single thing on the list that was spent are things that are needed to be done in our schools. We have aging buildings. You know that. Our buildings are aging, but they're meticulously clean and meticulously safe. But we can't keep aging buildings without putting more money into those buildings to keeping them up. And so the $300,000 plus or minus for buildings and grounds projects per year just doesn't cut it. It's not going to cut it. And so, if we came to you and we put another $1 million into our budget, if we put another $1 million into our budget, I guarantee that would be the first thing that would be cut. And so respectfully, we have to keep our buildings and grounds up. We have to keep them in a standard, and this is the way that the board has very transparently done it over the years.
Where's transparent? We didn't see it.
Because we go to
Well, unless we ask for it. You don't
with
present that
all
to
due
us.
respect, once you give a lump sum budget, the Board of Education decides how to spend it. And so the board is very transparent in how they spend their money.
Right.
There's a list of projects that go to
Who
the
gets
board
it,
and the
Jim?
board
Who gets
approves
it?
it.
We're sitting here at a budget.
The Board of
When you
Education
come to
does.
prepare, to present your budget, you should present that item that we had $1 million left over.
We could give you.
I know you can give me everything,
But
Jim.
we could give you the priority list that Pat Bradbury has.
Oh, I know
That's
you have
$5 million
priorities.
plus, $10 million plus.
Maybe you're not
for projects
Well, I
that
think
need
they
to be
did give it
done.
to us last year, or 2 years ago.
What was the overage in 16, 17?
I don't.
You don't remember that?
I don't remember off the top of my head, no. I don't remember, but if you go through the list of the amounts that were transferred, they're all amounts of things that you could not anticipate beforehand. And so there's surpluses. We may not have that same surplus this year. As I said to you, teachers' retirements is gonna be
I know,
in a deficit.
that's a big item. That's
Health
one item.
insurance is gonna be in a
Yeah.
deficit. So
You
I don't
budget that.
anticipate that this year's
You budget
surplus
health
is gonna be.
insurance.
We do.
Yeah.
So it's philosophical.
The question I have really, when it comes down to is, how many schools could be closed today?
We don't have that.
Did you ever look into it?
We discussed school closures 4 or 5 years ago. No, it has not been discussed
This is a
again.
budget every year. If we're spending a lot of money, I don't give it, I'm just picking any school, Harborside or whatever, I don't know them. If we close that, how much money are we gonna save? Millions, overall, because we can get money for that land.
With all due respect, that's
Yeah.
not on the table here. The Board of Education did a long-range planning study 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the community as a whole determined that schools were not going to close.
What
At this
community?
point.
The
Milford
pushback,
community.
The what?
the pushback from the community
Yeah,
was,
what's the job of the Board of Education?
Well, I think-
Community or yourself?
well, in the end, the Board of Education rejected the concept as well.
Why?
In a very close vote.
Why?
It was very political at that point. I think you know
Still
that.
political.
So-
It's still political. That's my problem. I'm an auditor. I'm an accountant. I look at figures and I say, wait a minute. We have 20 kids per class. If we close a school, how many kids per class are we gonna end up with? 22? 21?
You can't-
23? The state, what does the state allow? Up to 25 maybe? You know, we can move these kids into the other schools. You know, you gotta get,
Well, I would assume, it's been 5 years since the last long-range plan. Is there another long-range plan on the horizon?
Not at this time, because this board has been, we spent the first half of our term searching for a new superintendent.
Yes.
You can't be talking about that kind of stuff when you're doing that. And now that we have a new superintendent on board, who is now 6 months in, has done her entry work, right now that's the focus, is to look at the instructional side of things that the gaps that we have that need to be closed and addressed. So right at this moment, no, there is no plan to do that.
And we've seen enrollments consistently over the last 35 years go down, so it's a valid question. If we haven't done a real analysis in 5 years, but enrollments keep going down, not a bad time to be looking at this.
You know, I think there are multiple facets to consider when you are talking about closing schools, and while a numerical analysis is warranted, there is a community, societal, cultural analysis as well. I'll tell you, being only 6.5 months into the job, I spent a lot of time out in our community, face-to-face with various stakeholders. I spent time listening. I heard loud and clear from multiple stakeholder groups, don't close our schools.
Of course not.
So while there is a numerical dialogue to be had here, it's not the only dialogue to have when closing schools with declining enrollment. So please know that if that is the route that the Board of Education decides to take, excuse me, that will consume our work. That is all we'll do, is talk about whether we should close schools or not. And if you don't believe me, just Google it in other towns in the state of Connecticut. The wars that have occurred splitting communities, people who want it closed because of finances and people who don't because of their young children and cultures and communities. So I think philosophically, we have to determine with our community whether we're a town that's going to close schools, whether it's going to save us money or not. It's going to save money in the long run.
How long are these parents going to be here? 8 years? If 8 years? This is a commuter town. This is a town where people move in and out. This is not a little...
It's a difficult...
I know, I understand. I know if I had my kid. I understand that. But we're also a...
But on the other hand, we may not have a choice in a couple of years from now. Things are
It should be
changing in
this
Hartford.
year. You couldn't, a couple of years.
I
Who
understand that,
knows
yeah.
where ECS is going to be in a year or two.
Yes.
So,
It's a political item, first of all. Every person on the Board of Education is elected.
right.
My feeling is this, people should go to the state and say, hey, we want half the people elected, the other half be professionals. You have neophytes sitting on the Board of Education that don't know how to read a budget.
Well,
They learn. I'll give you that. They have sessions and all that. But it's a political item. You close my school, I'm not going to vote for you. What's the first thing a Board of Education member says? I won't close your school. Of course. But we got to get realistic in this town. The mayor, when you were a mayor, Jim, they keep things very low. They keep it close. The only budget that's never in line is this Board of Education budget. Never.
Well, I would argue though,
disagree
You
with
did a
that.
good job, Jim.
I disagree with that.
you have to remember that
The
as a
budget-
board, we have to balance our budget. We don't have an undesignated fund that we can fall back on if we fall short. We have to make sure we have enough money to run the schools, and we have to allow for contingencies that
That's
might
right, you
happen.
got to take the whole picture though.
And
The whole picture.
But Joe, I hear what you're saying, but I disagree there or with the premise that we don't keep our finances in line. We do. We keep a very, very careful look at exactly, and our budgets over the years have been extremely reasonable. And Joe, you're smiling, but our budget is a 1.89. Last year was a 1.43. It
1.89 is much lower than many other
You told me
towns
you
right
couldn't
now.
even forecast
Take a
4
look.
months out. That's what you told me, okay?
No.
Now, come on, you know that in private industry, you can't say that to your CEO. As a CFO, I can't go out 4 months, come on. You told me you couldn't do that.
It's,
well, I think from my perspective, the increase is very reasonable.
I don't
The
want.
problem is that you have structural costs that are built into the budget every year, whether it's salaries or buildings,
Yes.
health costs, that only leave 10–20% of the budget discretionary.
Yes.
So unless you tackle those structural costs, you're just biting at the edges of the budget. And this really doesn't amount to much, even if we were to cut, not to be a zero increase, because you have those built-in costs. So
Nearly
unless you-
76% of our budget is personnel.
Right.
Whether you close a school or not, you still need adults to service students. So while we think we're going to chip away at a $95 million budget, that's what you'll do is chip away. Because 3/4 of it is in people. That doesn't change. You might eliminate an administrator or a nurse and a secretary, but that doesn't amount to a lot of savings on the 75–76% of a budget.
Scott, any thoughts? I don't think we're going to get into
Item by item.
I don't
That's
know,
right.
but certainly, any other comments are welcome.
So at this point in time, you don't know what your surplus is, or if it is a surplus right now?
I believe by the end of the year that we'll have a surplus. I do not believe it will be in the range that
It
it
won't
was
be
last year.
anything something, I'm sure of that.
So you're saying, Jim, it'll be under $1 million?
I believe so, by the time we get to the end.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Do you have any place to spend that now? Projects or?
We always maintain a list of the priorities, the
Okay.
things that would be next in line. And traditionally, if we have a surplus, we spend it in our buildings. We reinvest in the safety and care of our buildings. That's
Okay.
where the money goes. It's not, there's no frivolous going out and spending on a wish list. It's things that are
All right.
needed, that are on that priority list.
So you have a pretty good idea where you're going to wind up? You have to? No.
A pretty
Yeah,
good idea.
just say yes.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, but at this point, it's not going to be in the range of $1 million. It's going to be a little bit less than that.
Okay.
But we will.
And you have projects, you have a list of the next things to
Mr.
attack.
Factory has a long, long list
Yeah.
of
Just
things
from this
that
year,
need
but
to be done.
Just in my building projects, I try and restrict it to about 8 to 9, and I'm at 3.5 million that was gonna go into the budget for this year.
Wow.
And we cut it back to
Sounds like we
300,000.
need more bonding.
And we cut it back to,
Please.
The balance.
so,
Sod, how much is sod?
Okay.
but I use that list to be very transparent. I kind of lay those projects out, both on the ground side and on building project side. So if they do, this isn't something I'm pulling out of anywhere. This is the list that we're going on, and I roll that up as projects come on.
Okay.
That's how I get that for the administration.
Question. The principal, one time, okay, thanks. If I remember right, the principals had a list. What did they call that? Discretionary spending on their part? Didn't they have a list they put in?
Wish list, that's what they call it.
Yeah, that's why I put up the wish list. Is it discretionary spending? Do we still have that? The principal turned in the list? We had it. I know we did.
And then
They had a priority list, they had a priority 1 list, priority 2.
For
Two
buildings
lists,
and
yeah.
grounds, for buildings and grounds,
Based on a per pupil.
yes, for buildings and grounds, yes.
That's the list. that
No, I
Mr.
don't know.
Factory
They had a
You're
list.
talking about instructional supplies?
Instructional.
Yeah, they had a list that they submit, and I don't know how that all worked out. I'm stupidly let it go. But the principal would submit a list of the things they would really like in the school. It could be outside grounds, it could be anything.
Yeah.
And they would have, you're right.
Yeah, you're right.
They had priority 1, priority 2, and I think priority 3.
Those are buildings and
That's,
grounds.
Those are
yeah,
buildings.
Right.
that's Pat's list.
Is that
And he-
through
and
the
he works with
principal?
The principals.
I work
Yes.
with the principals on
Right.
that list.
And now, are we still doing that?
I try and guide the principals a little more to building-based projects that are in need, for the need of the building.
Just building?
And grounds. And grounds. I keep a list on the same thing, but I think you're thinking of a different discretionary fund with supplies. I
Yeah,
don't,
there's supplies,
I don't-
but that's under 10,000, that's a very small amount.
But how many schools we got?
That's what he's talking about.
In the 6,000 accounts, the instructional and non-instructional
Yeah.
supplies, those schools, in those accounts, we have a per pupil expenditure. So each school gets a certain amount of money
Right.
that they, and it's based on the number of kids in the school, that the principals have some discretion over how those monies are spent. There are many things in that, the instructional and non-instructional supplies that the principals have no discretion over, like consumables that they use in the classrooms for the day-to-day things, and lease agreements for different kinds of software that's billed to their school. So at the end, the principals have some discretion over those 6,000 accounts, but minimal.
And those all go through me and Dr. Fedigan, so they're not,
Oh, good, you can tell.
I have, sir. There were a lot of no's being said this fall.
Of course, business, that's the way business works.
And
And you're not a CEO for 2 years unless you do something like that.
you know, the list that comes at the beginning of the year when we start the budget
Yeah.
process is huge, and it's whittled down. You know, it's like,
This is not the
How
first
about
version of the budget.
City of New Haven, school system wanted $30 million increase.
well,
You know what they got? 500,000.
But they may have been cut 28 million, but we're not in New Haven, so.
Same basis. Let's ask and see if we can get it. And if I was in the shoes, I'd be doing the same thing.
Well, if I could, our CAVE, our professional organization, has recently started to put together a list of percents of increases across the state of boards of education. We're on the low, very low third. There's 2/3 out of about 50, 55 districts that have responded. 2/3 of them are requesting in the 3 to 5% range, several over 5%. Very small amount that are under 2%.
3-5% of what?
3 to 5% increase over their current year's budget.
Okay.
Now, if you go down to Weston, Wilton, Greenwich, New Canaan, Richfield, those are all 3%, I'll guarantee you. Or maybe not, because they're pretty,
Yeah, I didn't bring
You know
the
what I'm
list with me,
saying?
but
I-
yeah, there was a,
you never compare as far as I'm concerned. You can't compare.
well, some of our like
Businesses
districts, like
don't
the
do
Wallingford
that.
or
You
Southington.
can't compare to
were
somebody
Way
else.
up. You
Huh?
know, Southington or Wallingford, which is very similar to us, were in the 5% range.
No, Wallingford is not like us. Wallingford is a dead city.
Well,
It's a dead city.
I don't mean like us in that regard. We're
Demographics. Same demographics, but not the same
Yeah,
money.
correct, yes. So,
Not the same money.
so, I mean, we are at the low, I was surprised to see some of the high increases.
I wouldn't
So,
be, because we're frugal here. We know how to spend our money here. They, look at their tax rates.
We're doing a great job in Milford. I mean, I am,
Their tax rates are probably higher than ours
So,
easily because of
please.
mismanagement. Look at West Haven. What kind of trouble are they in? Look at Ansonia Derby. What kind of trouble are they in? We have good people. We have good people. We have good people that look at the figures, and you're here doing it now. You look at the figures and you see.
we tried
But
very
there
hard.
were other figures to look at. There were other figures to look at, starting with getting rid of some schools. And they have to bite the bullet. If you present it to the people, I don't think you have a problem. You're gonna have, oh, no, I don't want to go any further. Thank you. You all set?
I'm all set, yeah. Thank you.
Joe, thank you for your comments.
Thanks.
Moving through.
Yep.
Okay. Well, most of you know the process. We don't really take a vote tonight, so we'll
No.
see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Thanks for
opportunity to
coming.
discuss
Sorry if I
further.
pushed on you, but
that's all right.
you're used to it.
That's what
You're
we're
used to it. And you're gonna be used to it for the rest of your life.
I think I am already, so we're set. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. What do we do with the students? I don't know.
Enrollments are down 9%. It's a splash.
It's up until 2022 is the projection. And it's
Maybe we'll make it.
pretty consistent. It's pretty consistent with the study that was done 8 years ago. So not nationwide, it's up and down. For example, Waterbury's had 1,000 more kids over the past 8 years.
See, we're there. We probably lost, what, 2,000 kids in the last decade and a
It's
half?
been about 1,000 kids. There's a 1,000 kid projection or student projection over a 10-year period. Yeah. It's been pretty consistent with that.
Pretty soon you'll be the only one in school.
One-to-one instruction, right? I'm not a millennial.
Accusing you.
Good job.
Okay, so, I think we normally just start on page 14, expenditures.
Just as some background information for the budget,
Yes, sir.
the state is still working on their budget. The governor's budget cuts us approximately $300,000 in ECS. And then there's $250,000 to $300,000, and then there's another potential amount that we may have to pay towards the teacher retirement pension. That is, again, all flux. It's my hope that our legislators are going to hold us harmless in Milford, but there could be, again, as of right now, potential $500,000 swing in revenue.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, could you so you were expecting, well, I wouldn't say expecting,
The
but as of today,
the governor's budget is approximately $600,000 less in revenue for the combination of revenue and funding towards the teacher retirement pension, approximately $600,000. That being said,
and that was, I'm sorry to interrupt, but 300,000 in ECS and 300,000 toward teacher retirement?
Approximately 300,000 reduction in ECS,
Yes.
and approximately 300,000 contribution to the teacher's retirement.
So we get $300,000 less.
Less revenue
we have to
and
expend
increase
another
expense
300,000.
another 300, roughly.
Roughly.
again,
And that's,
we're at the beginning of the process. I don't think we need to go kind of back and forth, because I think when the Board of Aldermen receives the budget in April, we're going to have firmer numbers. My hope is that this year the legislature ends in their expected date, and that we'll have the numbers before the Board of Aldermen adopts the final mill rate. The other thing that just happened within the last couple of days is that Dan Thomas formally signed the grand list. The grand list continues to swell. It was actually about a $42 million increase. However,
$42 million
for this current year,
yes.
fiscal year. However, this year, all of the tax appeals, the assessment litigation settled. So there were $37 million in reductions attributable this year to the settlements that we had, places like the mall, de minimis, but over the course of the 5-year period that we had for the reval, it added up to about $37 million 1-year loss. Next year it's going to be anticipated to spike up again. So overall, it was only about a $9 million net growth, which is, again, still the right direction. But it would have been, but not for the appeals that happened this year, $42 million, which is pretty significant. So
that $9 million
translates into approximately $250,000, $300,000 more tax revenue more than we had at the beginning of the process.
The 9 million or the 42?
The 9 million.
9 million.
Yeah, it's about
250.
So what's a mill worth, Peter? A mill.
About 3.5 million.
1 mill is 3.5 million.
3.5 to 4 million.
Really? Okay.
Half a mil. You said half a mil, right?
No, 1 mill.
1 mil is about 7 to 8 million.
So, yeah, about
7 to 8
6
million.
million.
Okay.
No, more than that.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay. Well, that's helpful information. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll go back to revenue after.
Yeah, we'll finish up the revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am going to move right through the budget. If anyone has any questions, comments, changes, just interrupt me.
What page you start?
I'm going to start on page 14 with the Departmental Board of Aldermen. I think prior to that, it's just the consolidations of accounts. Board of Aldermen, elections, page 15, register of voters. '16, Milford Government Access TV.
Just a question on that, maybe Ben has it. Why aren't we getting all the channels on? With the monthly?
For
MGAT.
Cablevision or
Yeah.
for Frontier?
For the MGAT. It's a Cablevision, yeah.
So for Cablevision, it should be channel 79. For public access, for education access, I think it's 78.
Yeah.
Right.
And it should be on, there were a couple of technical glitches because they enhanced portions of it. Now you can get at any time live streaming and it on YouTube, but it also should be, there was a period of some technical glitches as they shifted over to some of their technology, but I think it should be okay by now.
Don't we get 80?
No,
No.
79 and 78.
So
Yeah,
79.
79 hasn't been on.
Okay, I'll check it out, actually. I just had a communication with our MGAT.
Yeah, I'm just curious why we're paying for it when we get it.
That may have.
79.
On TV.
Yeah, of course.
They have
I
it on
wanna see you.
Cablevision, so.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Oh, Mayor, here we
Mayor's office. I hate to bring this up, but
We'll bring it up.
I just noticed, I was looking at gas repellents, and if the state enacts tolls this year, I suppose it probably won't be that quickly, but would we have to add a line item for tolls, or would that be taken out of gas and repellents and things of that nature?
You know, if we don't ask the question, hopefully nothing happens like the state. So I don't even want to tempt the fates with bad karma.
All right, because we don't have mileage and parking, if our expenses are not, I guess the point is.
I don't foresee it happening within the next year. Even if it was enacted this year, I think it would be several years before it was ultimately implemented in practice anyway. So it may be a discussion that we have in 2 or 3 years, but I don't foresee it happening this year in terms of actual charges.
Okay.
Is my hope.
Good answer, I like it.
Hold on a second.
Yes, sir.
Chief of Staff, who was that?
So it was for the first 7 years, for my
Fournier.
term as mayor, it was Steve Fournier.
Yeah.
When he retired, I spent a couple months searching for a new person to fill that position. And for each of those police chief, and his team came in and talked about some other municipalities. Each municipality is a little bit different. I think he cited Hamden. I think he cited Fairfield. Hamden's bigger than us. Milford's, 50 to 55,000 people. Hamden's 60,000 people plus 10,000 people from Quinnipiac. Fairfield is also 60,000 people plus another 10,000 people if they include Sacred Heart and Fairfield U. So they have a little bit bigger populations that they are patrolling. There's also other demographic differences between Hamden and Milford and Hamden and Fairfield and Milford. Hamden and Fairfield have, I think, a little bit more overtime budget, but they have smaller full-time sworn police officers. So they have half dozen fewer police officers on Milford's force. And there are other differences in the budget as well.
Thank you.
But again, consulting, they ever refer to a consultant to see, do an analysis of your police department, fire department? Did we have anything like that?
In terms of staffing?
No, or somebody coming inside, looking at your whole total budget for the police, the whole total budget for the fire department, and making an analysis of it. I wouldn't trust the accounting firm, but there must be somebody that, universally.
Well, there's a police chief association, but I'm sure.
You don't go to educators to find out how we can spend money.
I thought you wanted to point educators to the Board of Ed.
Joe,
No, I don't want
are
educators
you
on the
looking
board.
for someone to go department by department?
No, just the big departments. I don't know if we need 140 cops. I'm just throwing that out.
There's fewer than that, but
Yeah, what is it?
I think there's 140 positions, or
Yeah, right,
approximately
yeah.
140 positions overall, but that's staff positions as well.
There are consultants that do operations audits.
Yeah,
We had one done when I was on the board. We had an operations audit done. I
yeah.
don't know if one's ever been done since then.
That's what I would look at. If
Not a financial.
again,
but
if
operations.
you're head of the department, the police chief, fire chief, I don't care what department, public works, you want as many as you can get. As I say, as many as you can get away with. I don't know. That always indicated to me, I don't know if we are spending money wisely, or maybe we need more officers. I don't know. That's why you have these people come in and do an evaluation.
Do you know how many are on duty during the shift?
So there's 3 shifts for police. There are 3 shifts. It depends. There are more officers working on the first shift, just because you have all the administrative officers that are on the first shift, but the patrol division and the traffic division. So the majority work the morning shift, and then you have the afternoon shift for patrol, and then the evening shift for patrol. And for any given shift, you have to have, per our contracts, I believe it's 50% manning, so of the assigned officers to that shift at least. And this is not right. It's either 50 or 55% of those positions filled.
Oh,
On that shift.
From that shift. I'll get you the exact percentage for the contract requirements.
But there's no minimum manpower required on a shift.
So it's not like fire where you're required to have 25
Right.
oh yeah.
members on any given shift. It's a different minimum manpower requirement, and it has to do with a percentage of the total staffing.
Okay.
And I believe it's somewhere between 50 and 60% of the total staffing for that shift, and I can get you the exact number. It is contractual.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay.
Fire department, page 51. This is just a question I put in. On the EMS, is this asterisk overtime EMS, is that still applicable? Page 51?
So if you recall, a couple of years ago, we established a fund where 25% of the revenue for our EMS transport, we now, we transport patients for mostly advanced life support matters, and we receive that revenue. For basic life support matters, Nelson or Hunter ambulance, Nelson or Access ambulance handles mostly those calls, but for ALS patients, we receive the insurance money to transport those, and those go into a fund. We made approximately $1 million last year.
Okay.
Actually, it's in the revenue side of your budget, the exact number. But 25% of that goes to fire operations, and we targeted that to handle EMS type activities. So, for example, last year they purchased a new rescue truck. It also supplemented other portions of their budget related to overtime for EMS work.
Okay. So potentially, if the revenue from the ALS services increased to $1.5 million next year, some of these line items might be adjusted based upon a contribution of the 25%?
I think we projected what we think it's going to be next year based on a variety of different factors.
Okay.
So if you look at the revenue side of the budget,
I guess my question is, I'm trying to determine what the asterisk is referring to, whether it's...
The asterisk refers to actually last fiscal year, when you can see how they were very much short in that account.
Okay.
And so, not short, but we just made a note there that it could be supplemented by the EMS.
So that asterisk may come out in the technical session?
It may. Yeah, it was related to 17, 18, so.
so last year we actually...
I see, okay.
So last year, we actually received a little over $1 million, and that is exclusive of the monies that go directly to the fire department, so.
And I'm sorry, what page is that on?
That's on page 6 of the revenue side of the
Page 6
budget.
under paramedic fees?
That's exclusive.
Exclusive.
Yeah, so we actually made 75% of the total amount that we made was a little over $1 million. So we made approximately $1.4 million.
We'll look at 17, 18, and the actual, we received 848,000
Okay.
in the general fund. So that represents roughly 75% of the total.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was looking at building inspection fees.
Yeah.
So it's about $1 million, 848 is 75% of that, so.
Paramedic fees.
So approximately $1 million last year.
And this year, we're projecting about $1 million in revenue from that,
Yes.
those services.
And then you're saying that the EMS budgeted 150,000 reflects the 25% they get, right? Of money.
So a portion of the funds that they receive, they're going to use towards EMS designated overtime. Some of it is getting paid out as part of the operational expenses through the budget, and some of the money that they're going to be short is going to come from the fund.
Okay.
Yes, but I'd have to say, don't get too hung up on the overtime. Most of their spending has been on capital outlay, like the mayor mentioned. They purchased a fire truck. They also
that's right.
ancillary equipment
Right.
that they didn't have money in the budget for, or it was EMS focused. So it's primarily capital expenses that they've been spending. It's not. It's not. The majority is not the overtime.
The resolution, though, allows them to use it for essentially anything associated or related to their EMS work.
Yeah. So I see that's where we get 16,000 more in the vehicles and equipment, and probably the communications equipment. Are you using it for that area? It would be. That's on page 53. We got
They
an
use it for
increase in the-
communications equipment?
I'm sorry, I'm under the fire department, page 53. Communications went up about 24,000, and vehicles went up about 16,000. So we're using EMS money for that, do you think?
I believe,
No,
it's,
that wouldn't be
it's
shown.
part of the budget.
It's part of the budget.
Why that?
They had specific reasons for this amount.
Oh.
And what they couldn't get in the general fund budget, they will rely on whatever is available in the EMS account for sure.
Okay, what account do you call that for that?
It's a special revenue fund. It's called the EMS special, it was established by
It's
the
not
Board
like
of
Fund
Aldermen.
90 or?
No,
No.
it's a Fund 76.
76?
76.
I do want to highlight, I do have a meeting with our fire chief, I believe next week, before we meet again to talk about the final budget. You know, based on the meeting, I may have some recommendations for the fire department budget. We'll see,
Okay,
before the final meeting.
okay, thank you.
Good thing you pushed it out.
Yeah, that's good.
Hope it stops raining. Anything further on fire department? Emergency management, page 58.
Okay.
Take your time, you can go back if you want.
Yeah, I was hanging around in the room. Okay,
Emergency management, page 58.
yeah.
Animal control, page 59. How long has it been? 6 years?
Longer.
10. I still can't get over that. All right. Lighting, hydrants, and water.
And just to expand on that, the fund that we received from Orange, a portion of that fund we use for the capital project for the dog park renovations.
Right.
So some of the monies that were from that fund we used to improve the dog park.
Good.
I don't know if you've been by,
Yeah. Quite a bit of improvement.
a bit of improvement.
I have to go in.
Bring your dog though. You're not allowed to go.
I have a dog, I have a nice dog.
You do?
I'm inspired to get a dog.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me a dog.
Public Works Office,
Oh, I had one.
page 63. So this is the new construction project manager position. That was
Yes.
not new, but really.
And this guy would replace the clerk of the works on the various projects that we have.
He would be essentially a clerk of the works running projects. Just some of the projects he did, one was the dog park. He did the splash pad and playground at Eisenhower. But he also did, and there's a half dozen other example of projects that he's done over the course of the last 8 months. And there's projects that he's working on, a new bathroom at Walnut Beach. There's several different projects that he is the point person on. But also for the fall season, he was the person that supervised the asphalt management. We did approximately 15 miles of road where you have to make sure that you have a person working with, in this case it was Tilcon, who was the state low bidder, because asphalt, you pay for it by the ton. And to some degree, it's as easy for that state contractor to put down 8 inches of asphalt as it is an 1.5 inch overlay, which is what we want on most roads. Unless you're doing a reconstruction, you want an 1.5 inch overlay. You want to mill it and then do an 1.5 inch. And so you want someone there to make sure that the depth of that asphalt and the product that you're getting is the right amount, or you could be paying millions of dollars when you do not need to be paying millions of dollars. So the person that we have right now who's working on a contract basis, essentially as a clerk of the works, as a project manager, doing all of these different things, asphalt's one of those. Just as an example of some of the projects that we did that I know Chris Saley mentioned, we built a bathroom or a set of bathrooms at the Orange Ave Fields about 3 years ago for that multi-purpose field project that we did next to the YMCA. We spent essentially double the amount for an almost identical set of bathrooms. Actually, I think the set of bathrooms at the Eisenhower Park splash pad pickleball courts are nicer, and it costs approximately 50% what we spent for the ones at Orange Ave. So, you know, that project alone probably saved us $250,000. But that's just an example.
Yeah.
Essentially being a contractor for the city.
Mhm.
Trust but verify. Walnut
Is that a
Beach
law
Ronald
too?
Reagan. That's Ronald Reagan.
The Walnut Beach Star? You said the Star?
He was clever. You know, I'm a Democrat. I know my good Republican.
I'm not going there.
Highway Parks, page 65.
Highway Parks. When does the asphalt come under the bonding we did and outside of the bonding, you know?
It's traditionally paid through 3 different sources. It's paid out of bonding. It is paid out of our LoSIP grant. We get a capital grant from the state of Connecticut every year, local capital improvement program, and we traditionally have used it for asphalt management, for repaving, and then also we could use town aid road money for anything that has to do with the roads, including paving.
All right.
There's a small amount here for asphalt. Don't let that fool you. It's really just for patches and
Oh, I know.
potholes and things like that.
Yeah.
Building maintenance, page 69.
We are charged for traffic signal maintenance, the state doesn't do that?
The state does the traffic signal maintenance on their own roads, on state roads, but not on
Oh,
city
yeah,
roads.
right, we do, yeah. Building maintenance.
A lot of times if there is a traffic signal that goes across at both, you know, at the intersection of a state and a city road, it's usually a state-operated traffic signal.
Why is it under building maintenance and not highway parks?
Because our electricians are out of building maintenance.
The building maintenance, personnel, that is just for the city. The Board of Ed has their own maintenance department, correct?
Yes. There is some overlap, but
There
it's,
is, okay.
you know, there's a lot of talk about regionalization. One of the thoughts for many, many years is trying to consolidate with the Board of Education at least those 2 divisions, so that we would have the Board of Ed building maintenance consolidated with, but again, it's a project.
Mhm.
Page 72, engineering. Page 74, general garage. All right, here we go. Page 76, solid waste.
Let me just for a second, I was watching C-SPAN today. they were talking basically about community development. They appointed a new community development director for the country. And the senator from Delaware said, he talks to his people. I went out and I asked 3 questions. How you doing? What can we do? No. How you doing? How we doing? What can we do for you? So he says he was talking in a garage, a big dealership. And he said, the biggest problem we have, the dealer said, is that we can't get mechanics, technicians to be professional people. He says, why don't you get more money? He says, we're up to $60,000 to $70,000. He says, it's going to $80,000, and we can't get them still. He says, what we need is schools to pick up those technician things, your community college or whatever. And I found it interesting, 80,000. I'm going to my Chevy place tomorrow and see what he says. 80,000, huh? But he's probably right.
Supply and demand.
Yep. I'm looking at my mechanics, and they're only getting 50 cents. Get you.
So Milford is
They get overtime.
blessed with a lot of car dealerships, I think one of the most in the state.
Yeah.
I think there's over 1,000 people who are employed by these car dealerships just in Milford.
Yeah.
And those are not, that's not cheap labor, that's $80,000 per person, so
That's
it's.
right. I want $10 a car that's stored in Milford.
Well, it supports a lot of other businesses.
Right?
Yes.
$10 a car. Which one you got? Did you ever go up to Foxborough? Yeah, Foxborough.
Yeah.
They probably have the largest number of cars. I mean, you look, you can't see the end of the number of cars. In, what's his name, Koch, K-O-C-H. He has every make of car. Ford, Chevy, boom, boom, boom. And you go down this road and all you see is cars. And I said, what a waste of land. Because you get nothing except for cheap. How much do we tax these guys?
You can't tax inventory.
Yeah.
Huh?
You can't tax
I
inventory.
know, and that's not, okay, Kath, we need an income.
I thought you didn't want tolls, now you want to tax everybody's car?
Dealers' cars, they're
Well,
sitting
they
there.
pass it on.
Let them pass it on, no, we're running a car every 5 years.
All right, solid
thank you,
waste,
sorry.
page 76.
70s.
And here's the reduction on page 77, as the mayor mentioned, the truck driver labor reduction.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
Oh, this is my favorite one I have for you. Yeah. We have 50 states, all having a problem with recyclable. And we have 50 states that have an MIT, they have a Northeastern University, they have a Wentworth University. In this day and time, they can't come up with something. I come up with the $2 million barge. Put it out in the middle of the ocean. Either burn it or use acid. And then turn that acid into fish food.
You didn't go to MIT, did you?
No, that's why. But, I mean, what'd you say in the paper? Today was a big thing in the paper about it.
So the city waste removal costs, we are essentially staying flat from the previous years. And as Director Saley mentioned, we are flipping the $20 a ton that we receive for recycling to, as of July 1st, it's going to be $75 a ton that we have to pay. So a big swing, $95 swing. It's going to cost more to dispose of our recycling than the tipping fee that we have to pay for our municipal solid waste. So it's, at this point, only about 4,000 or 5,000 tons that we do a year, but it's still a $250,000 expense that we're going to have next fiscal year that we didn't have previous. So we're keeping it relatively flat, but we're going to try to make it up through some other savings in this department.
What was the,
So just as an
what
example,
happens to our rubbish? Where's it go? Does it burn to energy?
yeah, it goes to the plant in the Wheelabrator plant. At this point, our recycling goes to Shelton. It used to be Winter Brothers, and Winter Brothers sold to Oak Ridge in Shelton.
But we get nothing from them, we have to pay them to take the recycle, right?
As of last July 1st, we have been paying them, it's gonna go up to $75 a ton
For recycle.
for recycling.
What do we pay for the normal?
$61
Yeah.
for municipal solid waste,
Why are we putting it all in the 61 instead of the
because
75?
that's illegal. DEP has regulations that require all towns and cities.
Okay, we gotta talk to DEP, they have too much power.
Right, Kathy, can you get those
Get
regulations
the
changed?
DEP in line. That's ridiculous.
No, we
Because
didn't-
this is filtered, right?
You got
When they
a lot of
burn,
work ahead of
it's
you,
filtered.
Kathy.
It's
I
just
know,
ash.
I know the market could change, but if, potentially, if we switched out a single stream, and actually, for some of the recyclable products have value.
So what they're talking about at the legislature right now is removing some of the costly products out of the single stream and having us recycle them in other ways. For example, glass, which contaminates the rest of the materials and also is very expensive to dispose of since China stopped taking it. There are municipalities that they're going to charge as pilot cities or pilot towns and have them remove glass out of their single stream recycling and dispose of it in a different way, or recycle it in a different way.
Right.
So that may be down the pike. There are other secondary markets that I know we're trying to look into so that the recycled products have more value, so that it helps our municipal pocketbook.
Excellent. Page 78, public debt service.
It's a lot of money.
There's a lot of money.
Public debt service is a lot of money.
Health Department, page 79. Recreation Department, page 82.
On Walnut Beach, have we put in meters down there or not?
That is the proposal. It was supposed to be part of a larger sewer project and road reconstruction project along Broadway. We just this week received the bid responses for the sewer project, and they came in too high. So we are going to be reevaluating, and probably the sewer road reconstruction project will not happen before this summer, but we are separately looking into putting a kiosk, parking kiosks in along Broadway and a new automated system for the parking lot at Walnut Beach.
Okay. Can we deputize these people that have collected money and have them give the ability to give out tickets?
No, unless we form a parking commission.
No.
We have, right now, the police department is the designated enforcement arm, unless, again, the city adopts a parking commission.
Don't do that, please.
Okay.
All right.
Employee
Thanks.
benefits, page 84.
I'm sorry, parking authority.
Department.
Parking authority, yeah.
The employee benefits, that includes the Board of Ed?
No, not this section.
Not this
But
section.
later in the budget book, you have
Later in the budget,
the
yeah.
education, health
Right.
insurance
Okay.
contribution, along
Right.
with the other education.
Our self-insurance contribution is basically $500,000 less this year. Is that based upon claims?
No, we had a healthy reserve fund for that, so some of that's coming out of the reserve funds.
Insurance and bonds, page 85.
No,
Pension
what's the,
refunds, page
what's the
85.
one with the heart attack and all that?
Hypertension.
Hypertension. Is
Claims
that
and
in-
refunds, page 85.
Oh, separate account, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one I know. Yeah, I can't read. It's going down every year, it seems. Huh?
No, it's about steady, and we estimate what we believe will be the claims for the coming year. You're right in the sense that only people that were on the job prior to October 1st of 1996 are eligible for it, but there's still a lot of retirees and still some police officers and firefighters that are presently employed that are eligible for this type of benefit. The majority of folks are retired police officers and firefighters who have existing claims.
Did you say 96 or 76?
96.
96. Page 86, benefit and salary reserve, unallocated contingency.
Is the union wages under benefit?
Yes, these are for the union contractual wages that, based on contracts that have not been settled yet.
The nurses haven't been settled.
Well, actually, we have, the nurses have been settled, but in this as of June 30th, 19, we have other contracts expiring. So we had to increase the reserve.
We'll keep them on.
Flotilla 73, Human Services Department, Historic District, page 90. Milford Progress, Historic District 2, Health Services, Cemetery Association, page 91. Page 92, Bethel Center, Boys and Girls Club, Literacy Volunteers, and Milford Preservation Commission. Yes.
Just one on the cemetery. Do we own that land? We own that land. Does the city own that or the cemetery own that?
Cemetery Association.
On West, what's that, West River?
Kings Highway? Oh, West River?
Yeah,
Cemetery Association.
they own that too. Boy, they can make a lot of money. Nobody's getting buried.
Serious?
That's what he said.
Yeah, it's true.
Spread the ashes.
Right off the barge.
Huh? The barge is
The
good.
barge.
Yeah, you put them all on there.
Put it all in one shot.
Open it up and you ever see a dredge
Burn them
machine?
all.
The dredge boat, you ever see
Second
that?
barge.
They open the bottom and all that mud goes into the sand.
Right off.
Oh.
That's
Hey,
official.
actually, my daughter's in that business. She has burial at sea. Yeah. Huh? Yeah.
Okay.
That's the way I'm going.
Really?
Yeah, I told her,
I
put
wanna
me on
be
the
buried
boat.
at the funniest place.
What?
I want my ashes spread.
On the table?
If we keep talking, we might get on.
Oh, boy. Okay, I'm all set.
Joe.
Page 93.
Cool it, Joe.
Cool. All right.
Page 93, private school textbook, education audit fees, school debt, and education employee benefits.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Peter, if I add up all the items in the city budget that belong to education, what would the education total operation cost us? About 130, 140 million?
It's actually on page 13.
Yeah.
Page where?
13?
13?
Yeah, that's it.
I know that it's a much bigger number than what's presented in their budget.
It's, yeah, the education line item's about $28 million. And then
Where is it on
page 13, the section called education, it shows those areas that are related to.
So I would take the 28, add it to their budget,
Yes,
and that is the cost of the education system.
Correct.
That is the true cost.
yes.
Okay.
So if you look at last year's budget was approximately $120 million.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, the 18-19 historical, you see the 120 million, 120.3 million.
Mhm.
Right, okay.
Good, they spent $3.
And Peter, is that bigger than the city budget? The city side, if you take the city side by itself?
No.
Well, the total proposed budget is 260 million, so 120,
It's all, not necessarily, like right now, if you look on page 9, the total city budget is 121 million, 121.7.
What is it?
so
Yeah,
Pretty close.
but that incorporates things like.
So it's
Oh, I'm
100,
sorry, yeah, no,
services.
you have to subtract, yeah, the education, so take the 121 and subtract the 28 million, and
Right.
that's so the city budget in essence without education is less.
it's like 93 or 93
Yeah.
million or something
Correct.
like that.
Yeah, if you
Education
subtract
is like
the education.
120 plus. Okay.
It's approximately 60%.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to get a
Yeah.
true read on it.
You got it.
Okay, page 94, education operations, that'll be next week. Education health contribution. Page 95, education health services. The special revenue funds, sewer fund. Yes, sir.
The education, that's another million, is that in the front too?
Yeah, that would be there, I think.
I want to get the two figure as well.
School nurses.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
It's there, I think.
Yeah, it's part of that
Yeah, it is
28
coming.
in
It's
that
part of
section.
it.
28.
Yeah, the
So it's
nurses,
28.
yeah, it's part of
Yeah.
that 28.
Okay.
It's in that section.
Okay. What do we do here? Do something different?
The sewer fund, sewer commission, pages 97 through 99. Wastewater, pages 100 through 105. That's 106. 106, that's all sewer use fund. I'm sorry, we added a position or wastewater?
We eliminated, that, this is the second position eliminated, on page 105,
Okay,
truck driver labor.
Have we hired a new superintendent yet? Do we have one?
Yes, Lindsey King, he was
Yeah,
at
we
the,
have.
He was here.
He was here, okay.
Yeah, nice. But this is my neighborhood.
That's right.
I didn't tell them about the neighborhood before.
That's one strike against them.
I don't even do a neighborhood without any sewers.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I got sewers, but no
Oh, you
water.
just, oh, okay.
No water. I have to go to my neighbor down the street to get the water. And put the hose to hose.
So you don't have to pay the sewer use fee? Is that why?
Right.
So it doesn't go back in?
That's right.
Ah,
See, you gotta be clever.
Benefit and salary reserves, unallocated contingency, page 106.
6.
Enterprise funds. Harbor Management Commission. 107 through 111. Golf course, page 112. For a few years, were we doing personal property audits or tax audits? Didn't we have a company that was doing that for a couple of years?
We did, it didn't appear in the revenue, well, it came in as additional revenue, but it appeared in your budget under general expenses on the expenditures, because the portion of the savings that they were entitled to came out of the expenditures.
Okay.
And there's
Is it still there?
No, the program, it's not as active as it's still active, but we're not collecting as much as it in the past years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty much, at least at this phase, slowing down.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Page 5 and 6, more general fund revenues. Questions there. Page 7 and 8.
That's a new item that I'll notice.
Were there any pilots being eliminated this year? Do you have other, most of them were.
the big reduction, at least in the governor's proposed budget, which I know will change before the legislature adjourns, is approximately $300,000 less than the ECS grant. And that's the only adjustment that would be part of this. There would also be something on the revenue side where there would be a payment that municipalities would make towards the teacher retirement pension fund. That's, nothing's finalized yet.
Okay. Any members of the board have any thoughts, closing comments? We'll give you time when we meet in a couple of weeks.
No, I don't know.
The next meeting is on the 18th.
18th, yeah.
Right, Monday the 18th?
You didn't confer with me.
Is it 5:30?
Is that a problem for you?
There's a hockey game that night.
How do you remember that?
Right, 8 days in a row.
Motion for recess?
Yeah.
So moved.
All right.